We're starting out with our committee meetings, and first up is street sidewalks and lighting, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just requesting a minute to just make sure that YouTube is, the streaming is working.
We're double checking. See if we're live. Good. All right, you're up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring to order street, sidewalk, and lighting. Today's October 5th, All right, start over. I'd like to bring to order street, sidewalk, and lighting. Today's October 5th, 2020. It is 6 p.m. at the Active Adult Center. Is Mrs. Fry absent?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Fry is absent. Mrs. Angeloff and myself are present. All other council members are present and guests noted on my sheet. There is no request for legislation today. And with miscellaneous discussion, I reached out to Mr. Tracy, the service director, and asked for some updates around the city, as he's not going to be here today. And he replied that Fifth Street closure, although it went a week and a half over schedule, it is going according to plan. They're hoping to have the street reopened Wednesday or Thursday of this week. The delay over the scheduled week was due to elevation changes and utilities that ran through that area and the size of sewer that they had to put in, so it posed an issue. So they're just taking their time getting that going to make sure that other utilities are not affected. Mr. Tracy also provided an update for the Robinson and State Road issue, the street traffic light that's for days on end that it was out and causing a little bit of havoc and confusion in that area. That issue was caused by a fault on the Ohio Edison side, which caused a surge that took out some electric components in the box. So they couldn't get their hands on them. So what they did is they went to one of the lights here in town. You guys may have noticed that the light on Park and Third is flashing red. That is because they took pieces out of that control box and put it up there on State Street. So now State Street is functional again. And this is temporary for Park and Third. Waterloo and Van Buren projects. The Van Buren project, they're just wrapping up last little bit of that project, and then Waterloo will begin shortly after that's wrapped up. So that's anticipated on being wrapped up real shortly. And with that, that's all I have. Is there anything from the committee? Any questions or discussion from council? Ms. Bevick?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering if Ohio Edison is planning on paying for the failed pieces.
That's a good question that I had.
Yes,
Mrs. Angeloff?
Yes, they are invoiced for that. Okay, good.
All right. We'll be expecting an invoice for that. Any other questions, comments for streets? Mr. Jaber?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Mr. Tracy and also thank the street department guys. I have a couple of bus drivers asking for some help. Trees were over the sidewalks and their views and stop signs and red lights. Kids from school in the morning dropping them off. And they had some concerns. I emailed Mr. Tracy and he took care of that. And then I'll connect him and also the street department guys. And also the light we talked about on state, follow up on that. Mr. Ronnie Eagle was very involved with that one. And he did an awesome job figuring everything out and getting it going. Had like 4 or 5 emails about that. Nothing we can do when it comes like that is just nature and weather and parts getting old and rusted. So with that, I'm going to thank Mr. Ronnie Eagle for all the help he did with that one.
All right. Noted. Any other questions, miscellaneous discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mrs. Angeloff, and can I second? And I will second, and we are adjourned at 6:03.
Thank you. Pass your mic, your tape recorder over, and Mr. David, you're up with environmental health, social services.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services, date is October 5th, 2020. Time is 6:04. And place is at the Health Center. Members present, noted. Other council members present. Mrs. Carol Fry, not. Other visitors noted. Today we have no request for legislation, and I'm open to the committee for miscellaneous discussion. And none, open for other council members. Alright. Hearing none, motion to adjourn, please. So moved. Mr. Griffin,
I'll second that.
aye. And we adjourn today at 6:06. Thank you. With that, pass, sir.
Thank you. Next up is planning, annexation, and codes, Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, annexations, and codes are meeting now at 6:07. All members are present, along with council members, except for Mrs. Fry. Other guests, as noted on my sheet. Topics of discussion, we have no legislation requests. Miscellaneous discussion. All I have is that the planning is still accepting small business grants through planning. So if you know any small businesses that would like some help through this COVID, have them contact planning department. And that's all I have. Anything from my committee? Okay, anything from the body? Yes, Ms.
I just have a real quick question. The small business loans, I was contacted over the weekend, by a place downtown. Is that through, I just want to clarify because I told her BCDC. Is it through planning?
Well, the application, you can get the application through BCDC, but it's through planning. It's part of their CDBG funds.
Okay, I thought that, okay, so is that the grant then
That's the,
that the BCDC received?
yes, that's.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
There is another one, there's Summit County.
yes.
I mentioned that one, but I knew that we had one here as well that we received a grant for, so. Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that.
Anything else? Yes,
Thanks, Chair. Are we aware of how many businesses utilize that grant through planning?
not as many as what we wished, only because most of them applied at other federal grants, and so you can't apply to both. There's, right now, there's 3 pending. They're looking at that, but I don't have the answer to that, exactly how many, just very few, just a handful. So we're trying to help some of the businesses along and helping them with their finances and everything so we can get that settled, but very few. So anybody that can apply, that have not applied for any federal grants, please, pass that message around.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Greer,
I'll second.
second. Joyce Coburn, and we are adjourned at 6:10. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is special utility meeting with Mrs.
Okay. And the red button.
Report.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a special utilities meeting, which is a late request for legislation in which we will have to invoke Council Rule 702 to suspend Council Rule 302. Do I have a motion to do that? Or do I have to read what we need it for first?
I'd read it.
Okay, this is a draft ordinance to enter into contract with AmeriSeal and Restoration LLC, authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional service contract with the Mayor Seal and Restoration LLC for the WWTP Improvements Phase 6 Trickling Filter Structural Concrete Repairs Project in the amount of $95,000. This is for the concrete repairs for the, they were chosen through a bid opening on September 24th and is the lowest and best bidder. So,
And what is it? I'll make a motion that we, and vote.
okay. Do I have a second?
You'll have to second.
I'll second that. Yeah, I was looking for the could. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So I just have a real quick question. What area is that? What is that concrete for?
This is, the building, the trickling filter structure. And I didn't get a hold of Mr. Weaver. I did send a message, but I didn't get an answer back. But the filtration is that tall building at the sewage plant. And that's the one that they're getting the work done on. So that's, from my recollection, that's what I believe this is, the repair work on that building.
And is this professional services or is this the actual work?
This is subject for professional service contract, so. And it's to illustrate timeliness to keep the project moving forward.
I don't have the letter. May I read the letter? Thank you.
And since we don't have a department heads here, very many of them, if you feel uncomfortable about voting and without the correct information, we can table it and we'll go back to it next week.
I mean, I feel comfortable if it was bid. It's just that usually we don't bid professional services, so,
It says it was bid.
it says it was bid. I just wanted to read that because.
Yeah.
I want to be sure.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll make a motion.
Okay, and
I am confused, we don't bid professional services.
I know, I
What
don't,
is it?
I'm confused as well.
This
I
is
made a letter
material.
that says bids were received for the above referenced project. And it says you will find a copy of the bid test.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it shouldn't have said professional services, because it's a repair project and it was bid.
Yeah,
So I think
that's why I was confused.
I think that the professional services contract language is an error.
Okay.
so this is the actual improvements.
Because if you look in the third page, that is a bid sheet, that's a bid tabulation sheet, so it's a bid project.
So,
And it has labor and materials,
so then we need to take out the,
it can't be a professional service providers don't provide labor and materials. I just think that's an error in the memo request.
okay,
I would agree, that's what was throwing me off.
so we're voting on the
bid.
bid.
It's just, it should just read, authorize the mayor to enter into a contract.
Not professional services, a contract.
Into a contract with that company.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're still gonna do it?
I would like to make a motion that we
Okay,
help for it.
we have I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are adjourned. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it. We are adjourned at 613. Okay. Nope, that's a special.
So she needs a ticket for it.
There you go.
Okay, next up is finance personnel. Mrs. Fry's not here, so Mrs. Debevnik will be taking over as soon as she's ready. She'll stop.
I'd like to bring to order the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. It's Monday, October 5th, 2020, here in the Active Adult Center at 6:15. All members of the committee are present with the exception of Mrs. Fry, who's absent this evening, as well as all others noted. We have several requests for legislation, and I will do my best to go over them. I wasn't prepared to do the finance committee meeting. The first one is a draft ordinance titled Appropriation, Finance Department, appropriating $742,378.76 from the unappropriated item of the Summit County COVID-19 PSGP Fund to the Personnel Service of the Summit County COVID-19 PSGP Fund. And I have a letter here from Mr. Flaker. This request is for the money that we have received from the CARES Act from Summit County. And I believe this is what we will be able to use for salaries, correct?
Yes, this is part of the grant program that Summit County provided to all the political subdivisions within Summit County to help with the cost of police, fire, dispatch. So that's the program Summit County is providing to the city.
Now, is this reimbursable or they gave you all the?
The way it seems is though they're gonna be paying the money up front to us, which if we either received it today or on Friday, I'd have to just verify which day, but we will receive the money. Whatever we don't use, we'll have to return, but I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to use it all. If anything, it would just be a very small portion that might have to be returned because of the percentages that they're putting on fire wages and police wages, so.
Okay, thank you. Now, you also said dispatch, so can we use that towards, because we are, we
Yeah,
work with Norton and Franklin and Springfield and
I
Parker.
reached out to Summit County because it could also be used for, I wanna say, like, if you had a health district in that, but when I reached out to Summit County asking if we could use it for, to pay kind of like our portion of the health district to Summit County, they said no because that's already since we're already under contract. So I'm assuming it's the same thing, with Swisscom, since we're actually in a contract with Swisscom, that it wouldn't be able to be used for those type of.
Sure, I know, it can only be used for political subdivisions, not councils of governments. So Swisscom is not eligible.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions? Any questions from the committee? No? Any questions from other council members? Do I have a motion to call for this piece of legislation?
Make a motion to call for this.
Motion made by Mrs. Angeloff. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Medges. All in favor? Aye. And this passes. The next draft ordinance is titled Appropriation, Fire Department appropriating $178,000 $793.60 from the unappropriated item of the FEMA fund to the fire department capital budget of the FEMA fund for the purchase of a new radio system. And we did discuss this last week at the safety committee meeting. This is just for the appropriation. Does anyone have any questions about this piece of legislation? No? Hearing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Medges,
And I will second.
seconded by Mr. Angeloff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I did just want to note, Chief, this was the result of a grant that we received, correct?
Correct. It was the Assistance to Firefighters Grant.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was. I just wanted to be sure.
Mr.
Yes.
Chief, the old equipment, what do you guys do with the old equipment?
So we'll do one or two things with it. The first thing that we'll do is we'll check around with other city departments, see if they are in need of the radios, and if so, we'll make sure that they get those. If there's nobody that is interested in them within the city, then we'll probably put them on gov deals.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next piece of legislation is a draft ordinance titled Appropriation Fire Department, appropriating $12,000 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the fire department operating budget. And we also discussed this last Monday. This was a result of the fire department incurring several unbudgeted costly repairs to the fleets and stations. Also, the department needs to purchase computers for staff who are approved to work from home and replace the desktop computers surpassing their usability. Does anybody have any questions about this piece of legislation? No? Hearing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Angeloff. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Medges. All in favor? Aye. And this passes. The next piece of legislation is a draft ordinance titled Appropriation Utilities Department, appropriating $24,416.12 from the unappropriated item of the sewer fund to the capital budget of the sewer fund. And I'm just looking to see. This is to facilitate timeliness and continued daily operations of the utilities department. Did we discuss what that was
Like,
for us?
yes, we did. We did discuss it last week.
The other one I recall, is the 60,000 is for reimbursement.
24.
Yes, Ms. Porter.
That is also a reimbursement.
Okay.
From that Miami Avenue.
Yeah.
That's right, okay, thank you.
you. I couldn't remember what street it was.
Yeah. Thank you. Do I have a motion to call for this piece of legislation?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Medras. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Second by Mrs. Angeloff. All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. The last piece of legislation is a draft ordinance titled Appropriation Stormwater Department, appropriating $60,000 from the unappropriated item of the Stormwater Fund to the Stormwater Capital Budget. And if I recall from last week from utilities, this was for the water, the rain gauges. This is a reimbursement for those.
Right.
Does anybody have any questions about this piece of legislation? Hearing none, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make the motion call.
Motion made by Mrs. Angeloff, do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Medges, all in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. Mr. Flaker, do you have any miscellaneous discussion for us?
I just want to give you guys an update on income tax. The transition to Rita is going well so far. They did the first extract, all the data carried over fine. So they're really pleased. They said usually a project this size, they usually have some sort of problems arise, but they didn't have anything with the data that they received from CCA, so that's a plus. They're planning the next extract here next week. Will be the next extract. I want to say it's October 16th. Off of that extract, they will start preparing welcome letters that they'll send out to all the businesses and citizens of Barberton. I will make sure there will be a message in the water bill informing residents that come January 1st, any income tax related questions, if they have to mail in their income tax payment, that all needs to go to Rita starting January 1st. But I'll make sure we'll have a message in the water bill, plan on putting something in the Herald. I'll make sure it will get on the city's Facebook page. I'll also update the income tax page on the city's website, informing everyone to forward everything January 1st to Rita. So that's good news there. Also good news on the CCA front, they are getting caught up. I sent an email to CCA. They were able to close out the month of July. So I should be getting the reports on that here shortly. With July being closed, that means they're only behind August and technically September, but usually in a case of CCA, we would usually receive a payment in the middle of the month, and that's to close out the previous month. So really, they're not that far behind anymore. Where they used to be 3-4 months behind, they're now only August and September. So they're making progress and getting caught up, which is a very good thing. Not only for us to get actual information to see where income tax is coming in, but also it helps with the transition from CCA to Rita to be able to have everything caught up, actual live information to help that transition go a little bit better as well. So.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything for finance or any questions for Mr. Flaker? Yes.
Yes, thank you. A couple weeks ago, we brought up this is about the building department, still on that. We had misinformation about not making money, so we brought up leaving Summit County. But after 7 days later, we get Mr. Flaker gives us the numbers that we are making money. Going off of that, I think we should maybe see about different, add on different fees and maybe percentages to Norton, we cut that. Maybe work on that. Mr. Hyde and myself, we did some homework over the weekend, and you guys, all council members should be getting some information in email about other examples from other cities about what they do in their building departments to increase their revenue. And again, just thoughts, just put on the table, and we're all working this together to make more revenue for the city. So if anybody else has any ideas or thoughts or any examples from other cities, send it to us or see if we can work something out. Again, our concern, of course, is our residents first, then employees and businesses to make revenue for the city. And I know a lot of you guys said it's not a business, but at the end of the day, we need the money to survive in the city. So the more revenue we have, the better. So might not get business in your guys' eyes, but we need the money. So if you have any thoughts or anything like that, let us know. Mr. Flaker, again, thanks for the information to clarify that we are making money, so that helped out a lot. So I appreciate it. With that, I pass, Mr. Devote.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything for finance? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Medges. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Second by Mrs. Angeloff. We are adjourned at 6:28.
Okay, that's the end of the committee meetings. Take a 5-minute break and we'll come back for the committee of the whole meeting.
You get emails here and you emails?
He just, you're talking about, minutes, he just emailed it. So I checked my email to see if I had.
This is great ideas. You sat down yesterday, and you already
He did.
look at the city one, it's really comparative. Example. I go through it yesterday afterwards, on 4 or 5 minutes. So I said, Barbie.
That's the resident.
Oh, I
How
see.
could
That's
it
what he
be?
said. He said it was not very much.
We were there.
They're similar down here.
My office.
See what happens. Anything
It's
really
gonna be,
helps
it
out.
should be. That's one of the reasons why we want to do it's more user friendly from the standpoint of being.
I think at the end of the day, your neighbor, if your neighbor looks at it's like, that is right. Yeah, so regardless of whether you're a tenant or a homeowner,
That's why.
there's someone else who's there who's going to more likely incentivize you
I mean,
to maybe clean up your as well.
Not only that, technology wise, there's. Well, I know. You were putting more names.
I was like, man, the whole place, have this meeting, but it was good.
Yeah. It depends on how you go about it.
Yeah.
That is.
I'm not sure.
Hopefully.
Well, they
Places I want.
That's nice to hear. I'm here, so, I just free file and, let's see, so. I go to the States, see what it is doing in the States.
Man, I would.
Yeah. The first question that they have.
So that's what I said,
Everything was ready. With reading.
Yeah.
Reading.
Yeah.
So, the person is gonna get reading.
Good choice. There's so many people, you know, that's it.
It's not a farm, it's not a farm.
Yeah.
We got a police
So,
department
I think you'll see.
and a nurse.
Let me see what I.
This is Mr. Rolla, you can talk on the phone and,
Oh, no, my daughter makes a couple. Yeah. I hope you guys.
See the fun on Saturday?
How long have you been in? Yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
But one was
Yeah, they hear
You
You know,
know,
that because we really care about. We need to know the people is something. Nobody's meeting, nobody's happening, even the criminals are taking a break, so. This much good of a little trade secret there.
I was put out in the parks and I always make sense to my, I mean, even people know I have to tell. You know that people stuff, that is. I told you, I'm not the person that needs to go. I'm out of it.
Is there anything that we can do? Saying, you tested it, you didn't know. I feel like I'm like a counselor, I don't have any idea what that's about. I mean, I do, because I think all of us.
Do you have, because I'm gonna.
Yeah. But I'm walking, I mean, I walk 5 miles a day, so I mean, I'm fine, it just, what happens? Well, what happens is I'm totally fine. Right, and that's why I'm walking, and all of a sudden, boom, and I'm like, it hurts so bad. So he's like, before, and our walkout. I don't believe in like, I'll take the drugs. I don't know, and that part of the.
Okay, let's get started.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting. Today is Monday, October 5th, 2020. Please, start this meeting at 6:37 p.m. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next up is citizens addressing council. I have a lengthy letter here from the Akron Zoo, and it's the Akron Zoo update. The economic impact of the zoo. The Akron Zoo is one of the most visited attractions in Summit County with over 400,000 visitors in 2019. The zoo is a special place for kids who love to learn and families come to spend quality time together. It is an economic and community asset, supporting over 850 jobs and generating nearly $8 in economic impact in Summit County for every $1 of public support received, adding over $500 million to the Summit County economy since 2011. The Akron Zoo's mission is to connect your life to wildlife while inspiring lifelong learning and conservation actions. Education. The Akron Zoo's mission is to come alive through STEM education programs, which brings the community nose to nose with over 1,000 animals from around the world, while saving wildlife and wild places through conservation projects and programs. The Akron Zoo strives to provide value to the citizens of Summit County through enhanced quality of life by connecting them with wildlife and nature. Each year, the zoo continues to grow and serve more people throughout the community. In 2019, yours Akron Zoo connected 91,230 individuals to wildlife through educational programs and field trips. Reached 81 school districts presenting 889 science-based education programs. Supported 21 conservation projects or programs to save endangered species and habitats from extinction, including 4 citizen science programs managed by the zoo. These programs engage the community in conservation action. Participates in 46 special survival plans to save endangered species through responsible breeding and management programs. One of only 238 zoos and aquariums that meet the high standards of accreditation by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. We opened a new area of the zoo, the Landon and Cynthia Knight Pride of Africa. This project opened in 2019 and provides beautiful habitats for African lions, speak gazelles, white storks, guinea fowl, and African goats. Is an example of how the levy funded and philanthropic community and join together to help the zoo provide quality experience for the Summit County of creating immersive and engaging spaces for people to connect to wildlife. They welcomed 402,143 guests to the zoo in 2019. Since receiving public funding in 2001, our attendance has grown from 114,138 to 402,143, with 40% of our guests coming from Summit County and 60% from surrounding counties and states. We started construction of the Lerner Family Foundation Wild Asia. This project will be completed in summer 2021 and provide new spacious habitats for Sumatran tigers, red pandas, white-cheeked gibbons, and the Wild Asia design is to bring guests up close with these endangered species and provide a fun educational experience. Giving back, Summit County Community Appreciation Day. Since 2000, the Akron Zoo has hosted Summit County Community Appreciation Day for all the communities in the county. Because of COVID, things are a little different this year. Residents will be able to get tickets, but they must get their tickets online or a specific time slot, as the zoo is only permitted to allow a limited number of guests in the park at one time. The City of Albany Community Days, complimentary tickets available online September 11th through the 25th, and visitation dates are September 26th to October 9th. The community will have 14 days to choose from during the 2-week visit period, September 26th to October 9th. Albany residents will be able to get free tickets online by going to the zoo's website, www.akronzoo.org. There is a page on the zoo's website for step-by-step instructions on how to secure free tickets. Tickets need to be reserved by September 25th. Supporting the zoo, this November, the zoo will be on the ballot asking Summit County voters to support issue 47, a 0.8 mil renewal and a 0.4 mil increase for 10 years to support our programs, operations, and growth. The levy will cost the owner of a $100,000 home $2.92 per month. This is the first time since the original levy was passed in 2000 that the zoo is requesting an increase in funding. November 2020 levy, the successful levy this fall will provide more science-based STEM education and outreach programs for students throughout Summit County. Keep your zoo affordable for families while expanding educational opportunities. Continue to support exceptional care and welfare for more than 1,000 animals, including endangered species. Add more animals and habitat, including giraffes. And that is from your Akron Zoo. Okay, we'll go right into our committee reports. First up is Nina Angeloff with Planning, Annexation, and Codes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes met this evening at 6:07. All members were present. Other council members were present, except for Mrs. Fryer who was absent, and other council members and department heads as noted on my sheet. We have no legislation request, miscellaneous discussion. We're still taking application for the small business grant. Mr. Greer, I will get that information to you for next week on how many applied and how many was approved. And with that, we adjourn at 6:10, and that's all.
Thank you very much. Next up is Streets, Sidewalks, and Lighting, Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Street, sidewalk, and lighting met today, October 5th, 2020, at 6 p.m. at the Active Adult Center. All members were present except for Mrs. Fry. She was absent. All other council members were here and guests noted on my sheet. There was no request for legislation today. Miscellaneous discussion, Fifth Street closure has went a week and a half overdue, over the intended schedule, according to Mr. Tracy. The project is going well, and we're trying to reopen Fifth Street Wednesday or Thursday this week. The delay was due to elevation conflicts with other utilities that ran through the area. Robinson light outage was caused by a fault at the Ohio Edison, or on the Ohio Edison side, which resulted in a power surge that knocked out parts in the controller box, and that is what caused the outage at Robinson and State Street. Parts were taken from Park and Third, from the signal box there for the repairs, and then the light at Park and Third will be temporarily flashing red until they get the parts for that. Mrs. DeBevick asked if Ohio Edison will be invoiced or responsible for the damages, and Mrs. Angeloff replied that they will be, and I'm just going to double check that with Mr. Tracy. And Mr. Jaber, thank Mr. Tracy for handling the issues that are reported with the school bus drivers and bushes and right-of-way visibility. There was nothing else, and we adjourned at 6:03 p.m. And with that, I pass.
Thank you very much. Next up is City Utilities, Joyce Kohler.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met last week, September 28th, in the Active Adult Center. All members were present then. We had 2 requests for legislation that were referred to Finance. The first was a request from Mrs. Crawford for appropriation of $60,000 from the Stormwater Miscellaneous Revenue Fund to the Stormwater Equipment and Furnishings. That was approved and, as I said, referred to Finance. The second was a letter from Mr. Weaver requesting a legislation to appropriate $24,416.12 from the unappropriated item of the sewer fund to the capital budget of the sewer fund. This too was referred to Finance, and that pertained to the Miami Street 60% of the OPWC money. Those were both again referred to Finance. This evening we had a special meeting in which we had to invoke Council Rule 702 to suspend Council Rule 302 to approve a draft ordinance to enter into contract with AmeriSeal and Restoration LLC, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with them for the improvements of Phase 6 on the trickling filter structural concrete repair project in the amount of $95,000. And with that, I pass.
Thank you very much. Next up is Public Welfare and Safety, and Mrs. DeBeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety met last Monday here at the Active Adult Center, and we had several requests for legislation. The first one is an ordinance to enter into contract with Vasu Communications, Inc. In the amount of $196,672.96 for the purchase of a new radio system. And this is a result of a grant from the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. And the manufacturer chosen is on the state of Ohio procurement list, and the quote is below the state contract price. The next piece of legislation from safety last week was ultimately referred to finance, and it's titled Appropriation Fire Department, an ordinance appropriating $178,793.60 from the unappropriated item of the FEMA fund to the fire department capital budget of the FEMA fund for the purchase of a new radio system and declaring an emergency. So the $178,793.60 is the 90%, and our portion of matching funds is $17,879.36. So this was referred to finance. The next piece of legislation was also referred to finance from safety. It's entitled Appropriation Fire Department, an ordinance appropriating $12,000 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the fire department operating budget. And this is as a result of several unbudgeted expenses that have occurred, including to purchase computers for our staff who are approved to work from home and to replace desktop computers surpassing their usability. And that was referred to finance. And with that, safety will pass.
Thank you. Next up is Rules, Marketing, and Development, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development met September 28th in the Active Adult Center. All members present and others guests as noted. We had no legislation to call for, but we did have miscellaneous discussion. We discussed the application process for new appointees. Mr. Heidi is drafting the language for the questionnaire. With that, we made a motion to adjourn, and we adjourned at 6:16. With that, I pass it.
Thank you. Next up is Environmental Health and Social Services with Mr. Jake.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services met today, October 5th, 2020, at 6:04 at the Active Adult Center. All members present, our council members present, Mrs. Qualified absent. Other guests noted, we had no new request for legislation and no discussion. With that, we adjourned at 6:06. With that, I pass, sir.
Thank you. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation, Mr. Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation met September 28, 2020 at 6 p.m. here in the Active Adult Center. All members are present, all council members present, plus guests noted. We have two current pieces of legislation that go hand in hand. Ordinance number 110-2020, titled Foundation Grant Request Newton Park and Soccer Complex Project, and ordinance number 111-2020, titled ODNR Grant Request Newton Park and Soccer Complex Project. These both are for up to $500,000 because that is the maximum allowed, and hopefully get that started and underway due to time constraints on the deadlines, we will be suspending and voting next week. We had a request for legislation there titled Grant Application Parks Ohio Department of Natural Resources. An ordinance approving the submission of a grant application by the Parks and Recreation Department to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Division of Parks and Watercraft, to fund state watercraft training and advertising in an amount up to $15,000, excuse me, and declaring an emergency. This grant, once again, is time sensitive, so we will be voting promptly. I originally said incorrectly 20% match. It is a 25% match. Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. I did misread that and corrected it on my sheet. This grant comes along every 2 years, and there is a November deadline. The matching part of ours wages can be used for that. Our miscellaneous discussion was the Mum Fest. 3,200 mums were ordered, 2,900 sold, with Kiwanis buying up about 120 after that. The Mum Gardens and the floral clock and arch will stay up through the weekend as long as weather permitting and they don't shrivel up and look pretty offensive to the naked eye there. With that, we adjourned at 6:05, and with that, I'll pass.
Thank you very much. Finance and Personnel, Mrs. Fry's not here, so Mrs. DeVere has the honors.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel met this evening here at the Active Adult Center, and we have several requests for legislation. The first one is a draft ordinance titled Appropriation, Finance Department, appropriating $742,378.76 from the unappropriated item of the Summit County COVID-19 PSGP Fund to the Personnel Service of the Summit County COVID-19 PSGP Fund. And this is part of the CARES Act. It can be used for police and fire wages. And the finance director is optimistic that we should hopefully be able to use all of this, or possibly maybe just have to return a little bit of it. So we will be voting on that piece of legislation. The next piece of legislation was referred from safety, and it's appropriating $178,793.60 from the unappropriated item of the FEMA fund to the fire department capital budget of the FEMA fund for the purchase of a new radio system. And as I noted during my safety report, this was the result of a grant. We did have a question, and the question was, what will we do with the old equipment? And Chief indicated that he will be sure that no other departments need it, and if not, it will probably be sold. The next piece of legislation was also a draft ordinance referred from safety, and it's titled Appropriation Fire Department, appropriating $12,000 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the fire department operating budget. And as I explained in my safety report as well, this is a result of several unbudgeted expenses that have occurred as a result of costly repairs to the fleet and stations, including the purchase of computers for staff approved to work from home and to replace desktop computers that have surpassed their usability. The next ordinance is referred from utilities, and it is titled Appropriation Utilities Department, appropriating $24,416.12 from the unappropriated item of the sewer fund to the capital budget of the sewer fund. And this is the result of a reimbursement from a grant for repairs on Miami Avenue. The last piece of legislation from finance was also referred from utilities, and it's titled Appropriation, Stormwater Department, appropriating $60,000 from the unappropriated item of the stormwater fund to the stormwater capital budget. And this was also the result of a grant, and it's a reimbursement for rain gauges that have already been installed. We did have, some miscellaneous discussion from Mr. Blaker, regarding income tax and particularly the transition to RETA. He indicated that the transition to RETA is going very well. The first extraction of data went without any problems, which RETA was very pleased about. The second extract will be mid-October, and when that extract begins, RETA will begin sending out welcome letters to the residents, notifying them that starting January 1st, everything regarding income tax must be forwarded to RETA. In addition to the welcome letters that RETA will be sending, there will also be notice of this in the water bill, in the Barberton Herald, and on social media. In addition, he said that CCA is getting caught up, and he should be able to close out the month of July. So right now they're just behind August and September. This is good news because we are getting better actuals in. And that was the end of our miscellaneous discussion. And with that, finance and personnel will pass.
Thank you very much for filling in. Okay. All right, does any department heads or council members have anything else to add to this meeting? Mrs. DeBette?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry, I left out a part primarily because I didn't take notes. We also had a comment about an email that we will all be receiving. I think we received it probably while we were here, from a resident who has some thoughts about maybe ways to add income to our building department and make the city look a little better. So I just wanted to add that I forgot to mention that in the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Greer?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just real quick, the Halloween decoration contest this year, registration's just about closed for that, but I have compiled a list of homes that are decorated throughout Barberton. It's a driving list, so you just go down the list and hop from entry to entry. That can be found online on social media. I can also share it in an email with all other council members too as well.
Anything else? Okay. Okay, well, I'd like to thank Holly for filling in for Renee. Did a great job. And one other thing, I'd like to thank Mrs. DeBevick for her peppers and pickles. You can't do yourself, right?
Yes, I did.
I can't wait, so. Anything else?
Now if they're not good, I didn't.
Okay,
Add 10 so you can read it.
this meeting is adjourned at 7:05.